voices and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your love, giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now, my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end.
Hello. Welcome to this virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. We welcome all to our community with open arms and open minds. Our members and friends come from all religious backgrounds and have a wide variety of spiritual beliefs, but we share our UU principles and our work to promote justice and a beloved community in the here and now, without regard to race, sexual preference, political views, age, or any other barrier that might serve to separate rather than join us. We value exploration and find hope and wisdom from many sources. We're glad you have found us and hope you'll enjoy today's service. Today we'll hear again from the Reverend Meg Barnhouse, currently serving as minister at the First Unitarian Church of Austin, Texas. This sermon was first recorded on January 13th, 2013. It's a timeless topic, the delicate art of forgiveness. I want to take a minute, though, first, especially for our members, to recognize the tremendous work and dedication of Shar and Ed Farley in creating these virtual services. Though you may not see them behind the camera, this has become nearly a full-time endeavor at their house. Shar listens to hours of sermons and music, researches copyright laws, contacts ministers, and organizes all the rest of us that you see on your screen. Then Ed and Chris Jordan work their technical magic to put all those elements together and make it so easily available to us online. So thank you to all those who are participating. It's not what anyone expected to be doing this year, but your work is so appreciated. So, forgiveness. Maybe you're stressed, trying to cope with this politically charged climate and the things your friends and neighbors and family are saying that differ so strongly from your own beliefs. Maybe it's the forced separation and loneliness caused by pandemic and social distancing that has you down. Maybe you're trying to stay sane with children and spouses having more togetherness than usual, and your responsibilities have multiplied. Now more than ever, you may have need of this advice from Meg Barnhouse. Thank you for coming.
Apart but Together by Cynthia Landrum. Spirit of life and love, we gather together in different ways this morning. From computer screens, from telephones, from car radios, we gather reaching out across the wires, waving from a safe distance. We come together in religious community. From living room to front porch to car seat, we gather as we are able, ready to be of service to each other, to the world, ready to build the community of hope and of love. As we face this bright morning, we are apart, but we are together, offering our love, our commitment, our hope, and our prayers in service to one another and this world. It is a new way, but an old way, that we come together in worship today.
Hi, my name is Jan Mullins, and I'm reading our Storytime book today. The title of our book is Sealed with a Kiss. The author is Beth Ferry, and it's illustrated by Oliver Talick. Sealed with a Kiss. Seal was new to the National Zoo, just in from a small zoo in France. "Allô, zoo," she called happily. "Oh, my cheries, what friends we will be." She waited and waited to be welcomed, but no one came to meet her, to greet her, to shower her with kisses. Then one morning, a small sparrow swooped by and gave Seal a perky peck on the cheek. Seal was tickled pink. "That is more like it," she said. "I must stop the waiting and start participating." With a smile on her face and a very smelly sardine in her mouth, Seal ventured forth. Oh, can you guess what might happen? She waddled right up to Rhino, who sniffed and snorted and sneezed. P-U! She smooched Panda. Ew! She bussed the baboons. Blech, blech, fish breath. Seal merrily continued on. She kissed Kangaroo, cuddled Kookaburra, canoodled Caribou. "We've been slobbered," Kangaroo cried. "Contaminated," Kookaburra said. "With squishy, fishy kisses," Caribou added. The besmooched creatures bemoaned their fate, scrubbed their faces, scoured away the kisses and the fishy smell. "I've been smackereled," Giraffe cried. "I've been coddled," Koala moaned. Seal was oblivious to the collection of groaning, grumbling, gaggling animals she left in her wake. "This is the way I will make thee many friends," she smiled. "Wee, wee." Then she kissed Snow Leopard. Snow Leopard didn't groan or grumble. He didn't gag. Instead, he growled. "You stink." Oh, poor little Seal. Do you see how she looks? Have you ever felt that way? Seal turned and saw the moaning menagerie behind her. "Everyone thinks I do not smell like the rose," she realized. "They think I stink." She blushed scarlet, turned a sickly shade of green, and was left feeling nothing but blue. Sparrow flew in a fluster toward the animals. "This is no way to treat a new friend," she said. "Don't you remember when you were new?" "I do," whispered Koala. "Me too," said Giraffe. "She's right," said Rhino. "We're buffoons," said the baboons. They decided on a plan. "We will write a poem," Panda declared. "I'll send goodies," Koala said. "And say sorry," Snow Leopard added. They left their gift by the water's edge. Seal slowly surfaced. She read, "Dear friend, we sealed this with a lick 'cause our kisses wouldn't stick. And ourselves we want to kick 'cause we're really all heartsick. And we hope this does the trick. Please forgive us pretty quick. Signed, your new zoo friends." Seal sighed and sniffed, then blubbered with happiness. "The rhyme is sublime, and I cannot resist the peppermint shrimp." As Seal gobbled the shrimp, her heavy heart lightened. She knew exactly how she would say thank you. With a smile on her face and a peppermint shrimp in her mouth, Seal blew kisses to all the animals, who blew right past Sparrow, right past the gates, and directly into Seal's pool. They covered her with kisses, pecks, smooches, and smackaroos. "Now that is more like it," she said, "because some things, some special things, like forgiveness and friendship, must be sealed with a kiss and served with a side of shrimp. Wee, wee." And that is sealed with a kiss. And now we need to think about, is there someone that we've treated badly and we need to ask for forgiveness? Someone whose situation we haven't quite understood? Or if we're not getting kisses and pecks and smooches and smackaroos, maybe there's someone we need to ask for forgiveness.
This morning's reading is from poet Gwen Matthews. She writes, "Feel that? Each breath, every inhale, exhale. We are living, breathing, connected. We are the whole, complete, beautiful selves that we were born to be."
So the life of a minister is pretty endlessly interesting. And at 4:30 in the morning a couple of weeks ago, I got a text from a church member who said, "I'm up at 4:30. I'm trying to remember the last line of that metta meditation." And I think it says something like, "Try to stop being such a jerk," but I'm not sure. And I answered right away because I happened to be up at 4:30 also taking my son to the airport to catch a 6 o'clock flight. And so I texted back and I just said, here's the real line of it. And it's possible that if people did have ease of well-being, they would be less of jerks. But I want to talk to you about this meditation as one spiritual practice that will help with forgiveness. Forgiveness makes you strong. That's my contention. A spiritual practice is just something that you do over and over and over again, whether you feel like it or not, in order to make yourself stronger inside, in order to have access to your inner wisdom when you need it, in order to be able to keep your heart of compassion open, in order to keep your perspective when things get tough, in order to be unshakable. I mean, you're never going to be unshakable, really, but in order to just be a little bit sturdier, we'll say. Bitterness makes you brittle. Cynicism steals your hope. And ruminating on wrongs, either that you have done or that others have done to you, takes away your joy in life. And so it would be a good idea to let it go. As one of my spiritual teachers, Byron Katie, says, can you think of a sane reason to hold on to that thought? So the meditation we just said together is one practice that can help with forgiveness. Another practice is the practice that we teach the children subliminally. We're indoctrinating them subliminally with a spiritual practice of their own. Breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. That's another spiritual practice that they will know by heart by the time they grow up in this church. Forgiveness is related to both emotional and physical healing. I was just doing some research for the sermon this week, and I was reading a study that was done by Alex Harris and Carl Thorson. They work at the Center for Healthcare Evaluation, which is part of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And they did a study in 2005 called Forgiveness, Unforgiveness, Health, and Disease. And basically, their contention after doing their research was that unforgiveness, ruminating on wrongs done to you without doing anything about it, unforgiveness is a chronic stressor with negative effects on the body. So they said it leads to chronic hyper-aroused stress response, which, after you comb through all the scientific language, basically says it wears you out. So it's not good for you to have a feeling of being wronged. Now, having a feeling of being wronged is something that's appropriate if you've been wronged. So what you do with it, though, is you talk about it until you figure out what to do, and then you do something about it, or you just talk about it until you can let it go, or you just let it go. Any of those are good, but hanging on to it and letting yourself drop into the groove of rehearsing the wrong that was done and all the circumstances that led up to it and how wrong they were and how right you were, doesn't do anything for you. Anger, even in the study, they said some anger is unfruitful and it's not good for you. Other anger is fruitful and it can lead to better health because anger does its job. If it's fruitful, anger helps move you out of a situation that's bad for you, or it helps protect you from a person who's not good for you, or it gives you the energy to change your life in some way that it needs changing. So anger can have a job that's good for you. There's a Jungian analyst who I'll quote later about forgiveness, who talks about anger, and she says anger is good if you can cook with it. It shouldn't be such a hot fire that it burns your house down, but you should be able to cook with it, make things change their chemistry because of your anger. Another helpful question, if you're angry, that moves you from anger to forgiveness, a helpful question is, and I hate having to tell you this, but I'm sorry, but here you go. Helpful question is, how much of this anger is anger at myself? It's much more comfortable to look at anger at another person. But usually, a good proportion of your anger is anger at you. Okay, forgiveness is difficult for lots of different reasons. One, it's difficult because when we're wronged, we have the option of putting on this cloak of the righteous victim, which is semi-enjoyable in many situations. You get to be righteous, which is always fun. And you know, I've told you righteousness is the root of all wickedness. Most bad behavior happens right after this flush of a feeling of being really right. Because when you're really right and you've been wronged, you feel somehow, we feel, by you, I mean we, feel that we have carte blanche to hurt other people because we've been hurt. Or we feel we have carte blanche to be brutal and kind of lay waste about us with the broadsword of our tongue because, number one, we're hurt, and number two, we're right. It's a delicious combination. Very dangerous. And forgiveness can be difficult because sometimes we enjoy being in that state where we imagine the conversation with the person who has wronged us, where we state our case most eloquently, and because we've practiced. We use exactly the right words, and we have exactly the right facial expressions. And they say, oh, I understand. I don't know how I could not have seen it. I was so wrong. And you were so right. Forgiveness is especially difficult when it comes to forgiving ourselves because we can become addicted to that guilt and pain of self-flagellation. We go, I have made a terrible mistake, or I hurt this person's feelings, or I did something bad, and it grows to be the biggest thing in your mind sometimes. And it's very difficult to get over it and forgive yourself, and especially if you're kind of the sort of person, I don't know anything about this kind of person really, if you're kind of a controlling person and you would rather be a bad person than acknowledge that you just made a mistake because you're human and you're limited because you're human. Ooh, no. Don't want to be limited because I'm human. I'd rather be a bad person. It can make people stuck. And so I remember I've been making friends with being a regular person for a long time. And because you are one, you might as well make friends with it. And in my family, there's a kind of a family culture of that we expect more of ourselves than other people do. And the Bible verse that is recited a lot is, from those to whom much is given, much will be required. That's a favorite. And so I remember saying one time to a member of my family, well, I'm just a regular person and all the same rules apply to me that apply to everybody else. And they just went, oh, no. Oh, yes. Forgiving also requires a willingness to look at the harm that not forgiving does to you. Not only do you kind of stiffen into this self-righteous victim stance, or just a hurt, destroyed victim stance, you get stuck there, whether there's self-righteousness in it or not. Or you get stuck to the person who wronged you so that they come eat every meal with you, and they go in the car with you everywhere, and they go on vacation with you, and they're at work with you, and they're in your head. And really, if you just forgave them, it would kind of unplug them from you and let them drive in their own car and go on vacation alone by themselves or with whoever can stand to be around them. And if you don't forgive yourself, you're stuck also to that vision of yourself that you have, that you are a certain kind of person, or that you are the person who made this terrible mistake, and you can't move on. And it doesn't just hurt you, it hurts the people who love you, because if you are stuck to a mistake that you made, then you have these times when you're just, I'm just a terrible person. You have this trough. In South Carolina, we call it a sinking spell. You just have this trough that you get in. And so not only do the people who love you have to live their lives, they have to live their lives and reassure you the whole time that you are a worthy person. And it's kind of for them like dragging one of those suitcases with a broken wheel behind you that just frustrates you and won't go the right direction. And it's a pain for everybody. So you might as well really, if you can, just forgive yourself so that you can start living your own life. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, the Jungian analyst and author and teacher, says forgiveness seems unrealistic to a lot of people, either forgiving themselves or forgiving someone else, because you think of it as a once and for all or nothing proposition. And people do say forgive and forget. And I think that is ideal, but I'm not sure many people can do that or can even afford to do that. John F. Kennedy said, forgive your enemies, but don't forget their names. Over the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, it says, forgive, but never forget. So sometimes you need to remember in order to stay protected. But sometimes you can afford to forget. There are stages, Estes says, for forgiveness. The first stage she talks about, because she says, your forgiveness is in many layers. It has many seasons. You can't do it all at once. Sometimes you can do a 95% forgiveness and then you're a saint. If you can do a 75% forgiveness, you're doing great. 60% is fine. So it doesn't have to be 100% or else you've failed. She says, first, the step is to forego thinking about it for a while. Just give yourself a break and say, I'm not going to think about this again until next Tuesday. And so every time the thought comes, you just gently remind yourself, I'm going to think about this for hours on Tuesday if I want to, but I'm just not going to think about it right now. And the second step is to forbear doing anything about it. You just, as one of my therapy teachers used to say, don't just do something, stand there. You don't always have to do something. You don't flail around. You can just stand there for a while till you figure out what's necessary. And then she talks about forgetting. You actually let yourself try to release the thing, and then forgiving is the last step, where you regard the other individual indulgently and you don't have anything to say anymore about what happened. You've said it, you're satisfied, you've let it go. I have to say, those steps make a lot of sense, but they do not work for me because I, can't control my thoughts. And to me, it's like, okay, say you're not going to think about it. I find that torturous, as I would if I were one of the old alchemists who were told that this pot of whatever it is will turn to gold if you can just stir it for 2 hours without thinking of the word hippopotamus. My brain is as yet too unruly. Now, in a couple of years when I'm a better person, I'm sure it'll be great. But what works for me is this meta meditation. And I start by strengthening myself by sending loving kindness to myself. And I say, may I be free from danger. May I be mentally happy. May I be physically happy. May I have ease of well-being. And I say that until I can feel differently. And then I say it for a person who has wronged me. Now, the first iteration of this metta meditation that I learned was many years ago from a friend in the 12-step program, and she called it the resentment prayer. They pray it in the 12-step program. You just say, I wish or pray for you everything that I want for myself. And I think I've told you about her before. Her name's Dorothy. And Dorothy was having trouble with her mother. And her mother was one of these people who, she was kind of mean in that she was a very striking woman and extremely, fabulously wealthy. And she would do things like come into your living room and say, oh, you have such a sense of style. Who else could get away with fringe on their couch? So she had done this to her daughter once or twice. And so Dorothy was being urged by her sponsor to do this for her mother. And she said to her sponsor, I can't pray that for my mother because I wouldn't be able to mean it. And her sponsor said, do it anyway. You don't have to mean it. You don't have to mean it. It works anyway. And she said, but that would make me a hypocrite. And her sponsor said, Dorothy, you're a drunk. God forbid you should be a hypocrite. So we were talking about this, and I had very, very tiny children, and they were being supplanted in my family's energy by a sister my dad had just had. He'd married a woman my age, and they'd started having children the same ages as my children. And this girl, I know her now, and she's lovely, and this is not a problem anymore, but she was a prodigy. And that was some nerve, because my children were brilliant and beautiful, but not prodigies. And this girl was like, when she was 2.5, she was reading the pamphlets in the doctor's office about emphysema and explaining them to the nurse. And not that the nurse needed it explained, she just couldn't believe this 2.5-year-old was actually reading this pamphlet. And then they, when she was 12, they went to Italy for a week, and she learned Italian, and she got interested in King Arthur and learned Welsh. I mean, it was insufferable. Not for her. She was having a good time. It was insufferable for me. And so I started praying the resentment prayer for this prodigy sister of mine. And Dorothy said, you just pray it for 14 days in a row, and it's just magic. It works. It's not going to do anything for her, but it'll change you. And it started to. So I had to quit. So whichever way works for you, my message to you this morning is that forgiveness will make you stronger, and you don't have to do it completely 100% either, whether you're forgiving yourself or someone else. All you have to do is begin. Just begin, or become willing to begin. And let me know how it goes.
These words from John Lewis will see us home. You have to have the capacity and the ability to take what people did and how they did it and forgive them and move on.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding me. I rest in this love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. I rest.